Good morning.
Safra Tova.
All right. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Rabbi.
All right, Freilach. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos DAF Kuvav. Let's quickly review the sugya from DAF Kufhei Amid Beis. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Hakoreya b'chamosoi ve'almeisoi, and anyone who does an act of kilkul is potter. The Gemara asks the question from the Mishnah from a Braisa. The Braisa says that if a person tears something out of anger, if a person tears something because they are mourning over their meisoi, the Braisa says you're chayiv, even though the Braisa says that even though you're a machalal Shabbos, the Braisa says you fulfilled your obligation of kriya. And by the way, just to make it clear that the Rishonim ask, why is it that if a person steals matzah, for example, then you cannot fulfill your obligation of the mitzvah of eating matzah if it's matzah gezula, because this is called a mitzvah haba'a me'avera. Why is it that according to the Braisa that you take a chayah for chilul Shabbos, why are you yoytze with the kriya? That's a good question. And the answer is that when you steal the matzah itself is a object of sin. When you tear on Shabbos, very much like what were to happen if a person carries matzah on Shabbos and then they eat it. It's not called a mitzvah haba ba'aveda. They did an aveda prior to, but the matzah doesn't become a matzah of sin. So anyways, over here, the Braisa says that you're chayiv. That's how we began. So there's a stira between the Mishnah and the Braisa, both hakoreya b'chamosoi and almeisoi. So initially, the Gemara answered, right, that the Braisa is speaking about the meis didei, a person upon whom you're obligated to rent your garments. So the act of tearing is a constructive action. So therefore you're chayiv on Shabbos. Our Mishnah, that's how the Gemara began, is speaking about someone who they tore their garments up on a mace that they're not obligated to tear. With all the details, why is it called al mesai? Because it's a scenario that they plan to bury them. That led us into the sugya, for whom are you chayiv to rip kriya, for whom are you not chayiv to rip kriya, even if it's not your relatives, if it's an adam kosher. Then if you are present, b'shas yitzias neshama, the Gemara says you're chayiv to rent your garments. By the way, you should just know halacha l'maisa, all of the health care practitioners who commonly might be in the room when someone else passes away, today they don't rent their garments. Question is, why don't they do that? There's an interesting approach from the Poskim that if a doctor or a nurse were to have to rip kriya every time they are in the room and someone passes away, it would prevent them from wanting to be in the room. And that would have a very detrimental effect on the patients. Imagine from a doctor, he says, I just put on this garment today, let me step out for a few minutes, they might be needed. Anyways, the Gemara finally concluded that even though we did resolve theoretically the Mesai al Mesai, that our Mishnah is speaking about someone upon whom you're not obligated to rip kriya, but we still have a contradiction between the Mishnah and the Braisa regarding hakoreya b'chamasai, if someone rents the garment out of anger. Our Mishnah says you are exempt. The Braisa says that you're chayiv. That's more or less where we left off. So the Gemara said, I'll tell you what it must be, that our Mishnah is following the Tanach Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds malacha she'ein tzarich l'gufa is pater. Why is it a malacha she'ein tzarich l'gufa? Because renting by itself inherently is a destructive action. But there is a benefit. We'll see the benefit in a moment. But so what if there is a benefit? According to Reb Shimon, malacha she'ein tzarich l'gufa. The Braisa follows Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. That's where we left off. Now it's important to better appreciate the hemshech of today's Gemara. Rashi writes, Rashi more or less the middle of the Amid, a little bit lower than the middle of the Amid. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, says Rashi, now that the Gemara said that the difference between the Mishnah and the Braisa is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, now we can also use that same answer for Mesai Amesai, says Rashi. Our Mishnah follows the Shita of Rabbi Shimon. Even if our Mishnah is speaking about someone who's mechuyev to rip kriya for taka their mesai, nevertheless, it's still called a malacha she'ein tzaricha l'gufa. Whether you're going to use Rashi's approach to that or whether you're going to use Tosfos's approach to that, right? You would rather not have to rip kriya at all. There is no inherent benefit. You're fulfilling an obligation. You're relieving yourself from an obligation. So that's important to remember, especially the way Rashi learns our sugya, that now that we came to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, the entire Mishnah, at least the beginning, when the Mishnah begins, Hakoreya b'chamasai ve'al mesai, v'kol b'chamasai, follow Shitas Rabbi Shimon, and the Braisa that says you're chayav, follow Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Now, my friends, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, Allah she'ein tzarich l'gufas chayav, there has to be some benefit. Even if it is not an inherent benefit, there has to be some benefit of ripping. B'chamasai, that's where we left off. So what's the benefit? So the Gemara said that no, there is a benefit that when a person is angry and they break or they rip or they do some sort of destructive action, they are affecting a nachas ruach on the yetzer. They are, so to say, appeasing their yetzer. And that's considered a constructive action, not the way it was done in the Mishkan. Nevertheless, no, let Rabbi Shimon, you're going to be pater, but let Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to be chayiv. Now we're going to continue the sugya. We're going to learn now about the whole concept of anger. When is it permissible to express anger? Can you ever break something out of anger? And the answer is no, you may not. And we have Igeres Chafei that we'll quote in a moment, that quotes the Rambam, that quotes the Zohar, that kol hakoyes ki'ilu oived avodah zarah. We're going to get into that, and we're going to come back to mourning for an adam kosher by learning the sugya of kol hamoyed dema'is al adam kosher, the greatness of it. And on DAF Kuvav, we're going to continue to explain the next line of the Mishnah of a kol hamekalkel and peturin. Indeed, is that so? And we have a statement that there is an exception. That kol hamekalkel and peturin chutz michoyvel u'mavir. the isur of hurting someone, of wounding someone on Shabbos. Every wound is an act of kilkul. Or burning something on Shabbos. Every time you burn something, you're destroying it. And if kol hamakalkel and peturin, why would you ever be chayav for choivel or mavir? Is that these are exceptions. And the Gemara is going to challenge that. And again, we're going to link this statement of whether you say kol hamakalkel and peturin chutz michoivel or mavir, or whether we don't have such an exception, again, to the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon. And then we're going to move on to the next malacha, to the malacha of trapping, of tzeidah. We're going to define the issue of trapping. We're going to speak about fishing, which is trapping on Yom Tiv. Normally, we know that something that if you would have done it before Yom Tiv, if that food would not have been as fresh as doing it on Yom Tiv, then you can do it on Yom Tiv. But fishing is a great example where there's never a need to fish on Yom Tiv because you can always fish before Yom Tiv. You can leave the fish in the water. You can leave the fish trapped, but in the water he's already trapped, and he's still going to be fresh when you remove him from the water on Yom Tov. The act of trapping on Yom Tov is asur. We're going to learn about the concept that once something is determined to be muktzah, one is not allowed to exert effort on Shabbos or Yom Tov for muktzah, which, by the way, is the reason why one may not feed animals on Yom Tov nor on Shabbos, because you can't exert effort for muktzah. Animals are muktzah. Now, the exception will be if you own the animal, if you own the pet. The pet there is muktzah, but the pet is going to starve. But if it's not your animal, you may not feed animals on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. We're going to define a difference between an animal that's trapped in a larger enclosure from before Shabbos or Yom Tov. Even they are already in this larger enclosure. They're not considered halachically trapped. Versus an animal that prior to Shabbos or Yom Tov is in a small enclosure, and therefore they are already considered trapped, which then would allow you to take it out, let's say on Yom Tov, that you can shecht an animal. We're going to learn another shita that the concept, the isur, the av of trapping is only for animals or birds that are usually trapped for some sort of human purpose. Masha Enkein, I'll give you a great practical example. Can you trap a mosquito? Is that called Seder? And perhaps not, because since the purpose of trapping it is not because you're going to use it, I'm not even talking about using it as eating it, that also, but you're not using it, then that might be permitted to do on Shabbos and on Yom Tov and a lot more. Yeah, guys, we left off on Daf Kufa Yamud Beis, 3 lines by the end of the narrow lines. So Nachamo, we reviewed Rashi, that the Gemara concluded that the Braisa is Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah follows the Tanach of Shimon. That's why the Mishnah says both and and even if you're mechuyev to rip kriya, so you have a benefit that you fulfilled your obligation of kriya. Nevertheless, it's malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. That's why the Mishnah says you're patered. The Brisa says you're chayiv because it follows Rabbi Yehuda. But even according to Rabbi Yehuda, there has to be some sort of benefit. Right, when you destroy something, so the Gemara says, yeah, the benefit is again that you're making a nachas ruach to your yetzer hara. It benefits you. You were angry, and now, so to say, you vented your anger, and it calmed you down. Challenges the Gemara that that's factually not true. When a person is angry, you know what calms down their yetzer hara? Not giving expression to the anger, not shouting, not even talking, certainly not breaking anything. Because human nature is such, is that when you feed anger to the yetzer hara, you know what happens? You become more angry, not less angry. Are you even allowed to do so? Now, the question whether you are allowed to be koireya bechamasai is not directly related to our question. It's not at all directly related, because again, we are going to challenge that there is no constructive benefit at all from being koireya bechamasai. You're not benefiting anything. That's really the kasha. But how will the Gemara prove that if a person is angry and they break something, they didn't even benefit the yetzer hara, didn't make them feel better, it made them feel more angry? That's human nature. We're proving it from the fact that another topic, that if a person is angry, they are not allowed to vent their anger by breaking something. We learned in a Braisa, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, I'm in the name of Chilfa bar Agram, that says in the name of Rabbi Yechiel ben Nuri, Ha mikareya begadav b'chamasai. If a person is tearing one's garments in their anger, or v'habeshabed kelev b'chamasai, if you break a utensil in your anger, or v'hamafazed mo'isav b'chamasai, if you scatter, you throw your money in your anger. So says the Tanach that Yehei beinecha ka'oved avodah zarah, the person who's doing it should look to you like he is serving idols. This is actually the umnes, the craft of the Yetzer Hara, by trying to convince you that if you are angry, vent the anger, get it out of your system by breaking, by doing an act of destruction. And not only does it not work, it makes you more angry. And ultimately, the Tanach says that today the Yetzer Hara tells you to do something that you think is not so terrible. But then once you get used to doing that, then it brings it up a notch. And you know what? At that point, since you gave into the Yetzer Hara until now, when he gives you that suggestion at the end, God forbid, and as the Gemara interrupts and he says, where do we find an allusion to this in a pasuk? So we're quoting a pasuk in Tehillim where it says, there should not be a strange God within you. And don't bow down to an alien God. So the alien God within you is that's the Yetzer Hara. And if you give into the Yetzer Hara, then eventually you'll bow down to an El Necha. Now, just a laha'ir, something amazing, that in Nigla, you never have the words that kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah. You never have that. The Rambam writes those words. And many people say that the source of the Rambam, that kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah, is from our Gemara over here. But we're learning the Gemara right now. The Gemara doesn't say ki'ilu oved. He's saying that if you'll do this, eventually you'll be oved avodah zarah. You know, where do we have in Chazal kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah? Only in one place, in the Zajac. And that opens up a gavaldik topic. Someone wrote a sefer that proves that the Rambam learned the Zajac, even though most people don't accept that. We do. The Rebbe accepts that shita. One of the rayas is from this statement, that why would the Rambam quote a statement that you don't find at all in Nigla, and when he could have made the same point by quoting our statement over here, right? He'll tell you to be oved avodah zarah. And you know why, my friends, kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah? So Chassid Alter Rebbe explains, is because anger comes about by a person thinking that something happened to him that did not come from God. When a person accepts that everything that happens to me is coming from God, even if what happened to me came through human choice, even though I believe that you have freedom of choice, but that's on you. But if you use your freedom of choice to do something negative to me, I have to perceive it that God did it to me. When David HaMelech was told that he should do something back to Shimi ben Geda, because Shimi ben Geda, as we just learned in the Gemara, cursed David. David says, Shimi cursed me, God cursed me. Now Shimi ben Geda was no prophet. God never told Shimi to curse David. But David understood that everything that happens is coming from God. The negation of that is avodah zarah. Avodah zarah means that there is a power in the world other than God. So if a person is angry and get anger comes, if a person believes it's coming from God, they'll be bothered that they don't understand, but they won't be angry because God is good. If you were speaking about God, you'll never get angry at God. You won't understand God. You'll have a question on God, but you won't be angry. Anger is because you did this to me. I'm angry at you. You have no power to do anything to me. It's all God's doing. But why are we bringing the sugi over here? The point here is that the Braisa says that if a person gets angry, then the Yetzer Hara gets a greater appetite. And therefore the Yetzer Hara will be able to tell me to do something even worse. So if I am angry and I rip something, I am not making a tikkun or a nachas ruach to my Yetzer Hara. The opposite, I am instigating my Yetzer Hara. I'm not going to go to sleep feeling great. Wow, I vented my anger. I'm going to feel more angry. I'm going to feel even worse. So coming back, even if it follows the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, why are you chayiv if there's no benefit, there's nothing constructive that comes out of breaking something in anger? Just to know that al pi Kabbalah, one of the old ways of attracting the dark arts and kishuv that is borderlining with avodah zarah is breaking something out of anger, which is have in many cultures that they advocate a person is angry, they pick up a plate and they throw it against the wall. These were the old avodah zarah practices because it brings out the yetzer hara and it attracts terrible negative energies. And therefore, by a yid, when a person is angry, if they feel angry, they should be silent. They should do nothing and say nothing until the anger subsides. So says the Gemara, there is one scenario where breaking something and it appears that you're breaking it out of anger does have some constructive benefit. And that is the ka'avid l'mirma imsa'in shabeisei. If a person is living in an environment and there is a behavior that's not the way it should be, in a case where if the household members will think that they're getting you upset, they're going to stop doing it. So then you have the right, and sometimes it's advisable for you to make believe as if you're angry. And then when you show everyone that you're angry, even though you're really not, they're going to say, "Oh, we crossed the line. We're not going to do that anymore." And indeed, we have that behavior by various Amoraim. He had Rabbi Yehuda Shalef Mitzuvi Yasa. He used to pull off the border of his garment for his household members to think that he's angry. He would broke already broken utensil. He didn't want to break anything. Rav Sheshes, Rami Leila Amsa, Mainina Adesha, right? She would take fresh brine, where's Kevan, and she would throw it towards the direction of a maidservant. All of this was just to show that they were upset. Rav Abba Tavad, Nachtama, he would break the lid off a pitcher. This is mamish the meister from the Alter Rebbe. Whatever they did, the emphasis is that, first of all, they're not really fully breaking something. But Void V'hu Ikar over here is that one is only allowed to do it if they are inwardly, they're not angry at all. Elama, like we know, when you see someone gets very upset, you feel, oh, guys, let's take everything a notch down. And that circumstance, the Braisa says that Hakereya b'chamasa yerchayev, and even this, my friends, is only according to the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, because according to Rab Shimon, it's still a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, because you're trying to prevent a certain negative behavior from happening in the house. Seder, but that's malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. The Mishnah says you're pater, and the Braisa says that you're chayev. Okay, now that we brought up before regarding doing kriya al meisoi, so now we're going to continue a little bit more about the great mitzvah of mourning, which also includes sometimes ripping kriya for an adam kasher. Amar Rab Shimon ben Pasi, Amar Yeshua ben Levi, Shemar Kapara. Kol hamoyed the mois al adam kasher, whoever sheds tears for the passing of a upright person, a kosher person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Seifron, those tears are so precious to God that God counts those tears, Umanicham lebeis genazav, and He places them in His treasure house. Like we have a treasure box. What do you think God has in His treasure box? Our tears. And Shenemer, as it says in Tehillim, that noidi sofarti ata, that my wandering galus, sadis, is something that God values. You counted. And also, that you placed my tears in your pitcher. Are they not in your account? It's a chalsaraya that Ro'evesher counts them. And furthermore, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, kol hamis atzel, in the negative, if a person acts lazily, when there is a passing of a chacham, not only you're not crying, but you're rushing the whole procedure, then it says, this person is fit to be buried alive. Shenemer, as it says, and this is regarding Yeshua, that Yeshua was buried right in his nachala, which is Betimnas Serach Asher Bahar Ephraim, right? The area is called Timnas Serach. It's in the Mount of Ephraim, and now we add a detail that's completely superfluous, and that is in the north. Lahar Goash. So the Goash was making a drush. That Goash is Ragash. Lamed that during his burial there was an earthquake. And it's God's world. God was shaking the world. Why was God shaking the world? Because the people then were not properly eulogizing Yeshua. How do we know the people were not properly eulogizing Yeshua? Guys, look inside the last place with some little letters. And indeed, everyone should have mourned for him. Who was greater than Yeshua? He conquered the land. He needed to be the one dividing the land. Do you understand the challenge that he had of giving every family a portion of land? You think people were happy? My neighbor got a bigger portion. I want another portion. We're speaking about real estate. The tircha, the tzibura, no one had like Yeshua. And it was expected that people should eulogize him better. And his days will not be prolonged. Why? Mida keneged mida. Measure for measure. Guys, look inside the Rashi, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amid. When there's a passing, my friends, let me tell you, no matter how old a person is, it's never, he lived a full life. No, chaval, he could have lived another few days. Doesn't bother you that he lost out a couple of days. So this person says, Rashi, mida keneged mida, af l'chayav lo yochushu min hashamayim. Back over here. And the concept of mida keneged mida, we quote this many times, it's quoted from the Pasuk, b'sasa'ah, b'shalcha tirivena, with precise measure. Because when Hashem contends with the wicked, God contends with them precise. Precise means mida keneged mida. Okay. It says that Vayavdu ha'ames Hashem kol yemei Yeshua v'chol yemei hazakenim asher he'erichu yomim achri Yeshua. You are just telling me that by Yeshua they were not masved him properly. And now you're telling me that whenever that happens, mida keneged mida, their life is diminished. It says clearly that the elders had arichus yomim after Yeshua's passing. They didn't lose any of their days. So Amar Loi, Rabbi Yochanan was bothered by the challenge. Fakert, that's a raya, not a challenge. Bavloi, you Babylonians, look at the pasuk. Yomim ha'erichu. Yeah, their days were prolonged, but shanim lo yerichu. Wow. In other words, don't confuse arichus yamim and arichus shanim. Hold on, asks the Gemara. When we have in the Chumash a bracha, for example, we say this every day in the Shema, Leman yirbu yemechem v'yemei. We don't say Leman yirbu yemechem v'shnechem. And if yamim means yamim and not shanim, so maybe that's not a good thing. Yamim v'lo shanim. So he said, Rabbi Yochanan says no. When the pasuk is writing a bracha, there, yeah, it's self-understood that yamim includes shanim. But when you have a pasuk in Yeshua recording a fact, not a bracha, that the elders lived arichus yamim after Yeshua, really, there's the diuk is they lived long days and not long years. Now, first of all, what does it mean, long days and not, what does that mean? So Rashi, just to know, Gavaldik here, in the bottom of the Amid says, 7 lines before the bottom of the Amid, arichus yamim means that when a person passes away, their final days was in relative good health. It didn't suffer at the end. That's called arichus yamim. It doesn't mean they lived long. It just means that the last couple of weeks or months of life, they were not nevach b'duka b'yisurim, which is the way of many people when they pass away. That's arichus yamim v'shana, means they live a long life. Very interesting. I just want to say that our family has a tradition. The story is passed down that my mother Zayda, of Meir Simcha Chaim, the great chassid, that when he had a large family and he would get a letter every year from the Frierdiker Rebbe wishing him well for the New Year's, and when he got a letter at the final year of his life, he gathered all of his children and all of his grandchildren and he told them that this is my final Tishrei. I'm passing away this year. They told him, the Tata Zayda, how can you say that? So he says that the Frierdiker Rebbe, who would wish him every year, and he would conclude the letter with arichus yamim v'shanim, that year he got a letter from the Rebbe, arichus yamim. It doesn't contradict our Gemara, because our Gemara, when it says in the Chumash, L'man yirbu yemechem, there the Torah doesn't say in another place, L'man yirbu yemechem u'shnechem, for you to contrast. It just says yemechem. But when a tzaddik normally uses the words arichus yamim v'shanim, and 1 year they omit it, it's b'diuk. And then my mother always tells me the story that her mother and the family, they told their father, the Rebbe made a mistake. He left out the word shanim. So the Meir Simcha says, a Rebbe machnish a mistake. And there's a long story that we don't have time for. A moedidik story. how the Rebbe, every word is exact. And since the Rebbe told him that arichus yamim, and normally he would say v'shanim, it meant that he's only going to have arichus yamim and not shanim. And indeed, that was his final year that he lived in this world. Speaking about passings, there's a group, and beginning with a brother. Now we're finally coming 27 minutes into DAF Kuvav. That yid'agu kol ha'achim kulam. All of the brothers should worry. Maybe their time came. Likewise, echad min ha'chabura shemeis, yitzir kol ha'chabura kulam. Now, who is the one that passes away that should evoke that fear? Omri law, the meis gadol. Oh, if the meis gadol, then the other one should worry. Omri law, the meis katan. Whichever one, like Rashi says, that we have shiva klala maschilim and akatan. And just to add something, that there's a Midrash that says that worry goes away if a baby boy is born to that group. This is a relatively known Midrash, and that's a big simcha, that when there's a passing in the family, that's the way of the world until Mashiach. And then the baby is born, that's a big simcha, even if you don't name it after the one who passed away. But normally we do that, because that takes away this daiga, that the midas hadin on this group or this family goes away, and it's expressed by the birth of a baby boy. Okay. So now that we just remembered that we learned at Rashi, that even though we began to say Meisoi in the Mishnah doesn't mean his mace, we concluded that our Mishnah is Rab Shimon, the Brais is Rabbi Yehuda, that not only addresses the Hakoreya B'Chamasa, it also addresses the Hakoreya Al Meisoi. Now you're going to see how Rashi is going to make a 180. I know that this Amud looks little, and now we have relatively not that much time, but this is no little Amud. This is huge. When you're learning yeshiva, the smaller the Amud of Gemara, the more worried you get. Not worried. The more you understand that the Tosfos are big, and this this is a big Amud, my friends. So here's the concept. The Mishnah said after Hakoreya Al Meisoi, Hakoreya B'Chamosoi, V'chol HaMekalkalin, any destructive act, pater. So says the Gemara that Tanach, Rabbi Abo Kamei Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Abo's an Amoira, but he had a Tanach, he had a Braisa that no one else knew, and he's learning the Braisa, he's chazering, he's teaching, he's sharing the Braisa with the Oilam in front of Rabbi Yechanan, and this is what the Braisa says: Kol HaMekalkalin Peturin, but not the way the Mishnah said it. And no, he added Chutz Michoyvel U'Mavir. Two exceptions. Wounding is a tulda. We're going to speak about it later. There are many big machlekes, a tulda of what? But let's just go. We don't have time. Chayvel, wounding is a biblical violation. Burning is a biblical violation. So he says that every act, l'chayra, chayvel, and mavir, it's kilkul. And you're not potted. And by the way, how do you know you're not potted? So Rashi here on top of the Amud Gavaldik, he brings for each one. Chayvel, how do I know that you're chayvel if I wound a person? That I am chayiv, so it's an exception. He quotes from a Mishnah in Bava Kama that if you're chayvel b'chavere b'Shabbos, normally when I wound you, I owe you money. But there's a rule called kam lei b'derabba minei. If the same act brings about a greater punishment, then you only get the greater punishment. Which is why if I'm chayvel b'chavere b'Shabbos, I don't have to pay money. Why? Because I'm chayiv misa, which means I am chayiv. The next Rashi, Umavir, that he gives another example also from Shabbos, that if I burn down your storage house, God forbid, on Shabbos, right? So the din is that I don't have to pay you. I am mazik your storage house, again, because I burnt it, because I was maver on Shabbos. So Rabbi Bo quoted that Bryce says, guys, the reprimand, the biggest reprimand you can have in the Gemara is when you get kicked out of the classroom. Like today in school, no one kicked the other person out of the classroom. You kick the Braisa. You bring a teaching in the room. Get that teaching out of my room. Rabbi Yechanan completely rejected that. Amalei, Rabbi Yechanan tells Rabbi Bo, this Braisa outside of my room. Choyvel umavid cannot be a Mishnah. You're quoting something that's not authoritative. And even if you're going to argue that you know for sure that you heard it from your Rebbe and his Rebbe heard it from his Rebbe, and you're going to argue the Imtim Slem's a Mishnah, so I'm going to limit that statement. Choyvel, when are you chayiv only b'tzarech lekalboi? Guys, if you remember, we learned enough, I think it was Daf Ayin Hey Amid Beis. If an animal eats up human blood, it hurts that human being. It's not a good thing. Doesn't matter. We're speaking about a person that needs to feed his dog blood. So they're wounding a person to get their blood to feed it to their dog. In other words, there has to be some constructive reason for doing the wound. Then you're going to be chayiv. And not so simple. But we're going to go into Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon in a moment. Mavir, do you know when the burning, if that Mishnah is authoritative, that when you're Mavir, you're going to be chayiv, eye burning is an act of kilkul, it's only when you need to have the ashes. Even though, guys, it's self-understood that if you have something of value and you burn it and you turn it into ashes, the ashes has a lot less value than the original item. But at least there is some purpose, there's some constructive purpose. So, says Rabbi Yechim to Rabbi Bo. Now, says the Gemara, I don't understand. Let's go to Rabbi Bo. You see, from the fact that Rabbi Yechim told him the Imtim Soleimer Mishnah, you see in between the lines that Rabbi Bo was really standing his ground. He was saying, no, there's a brakol, a makalkal, and peturim, chutz michoy v'lo mavet. So asks the Gemara on Rabbi Bo, look at our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, kol, a makalkal, and peturim. There is no exception. So how does Rabbi Bo deal with our Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, Masnisin Rabbi Yehuda, and the Brais is Rab Shimon. Guys, this is mamish a 180 of what you're thinking right now. So first of all, the Gemara doesn't say explicitly what Rabbi Yehuda, what Rabbi Shimon. There are many arguments in Hilchos Shabbos between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So we have to learn Rashi to appreciate a little bit the Gavaldigkeit of the Sugya. Rashi is 40 lines from the top of the Amid. Masnis and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, the Islamic Kalka B'Chabura is pater, period. Which Rabbi Yehuda zokt Rashi, v'lo yispar sheikha. Rashi says, I was not taught which Rabbi Yehuda. Well, is it a machlokes directly about choyvel umavir? Maybe, I just never heard about it. So since Rashi was never taught a explicit machlokes on choyvel umavir, the liniro says Rashi that the Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda is the Rabbi Yehuda that we spoke about on Daf Kuf Yom Beis. And how ironic, guys, if you remember, Dafka Rashi says that not only Hakereya B'Chamasai, but Hakereya Al Mesai of our Mishnah is also Reb Shimon. And now this next line, Rashi says the only way that he understands this Gemara is by saying that the next line, V'chol HaMakalkal and Peturim, is Rabbi Yehuda. Now, guys, now I want to ask you a question. Don't look at Rashi for a second. Think. Isn't it normally that Rabbi Yehuda is the Machmer? Rabbi Yehuda is the Machmer. Rabbi Shimon is the Mekel by Malach Hashem Tzricha Lagufa. Here, Rashi is saying it's mamish the opposite. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says Malach Hashem Tzricha Lagufa is Chayiv. That's why our Mishnah says Kol HaMakalkal and Pturin. You have the beauty here. Rabbi Bo's Braisa that Kol HaMakalkal chutz michoyvel and choyvel umaver, you're always chayiv. According to Rabbi Bo, you're always chayiv. Not only if tzarech lekalboi, not if tzarech leafroi. That goes according to Rab Shimon. How would you make sense of that? Rab Shimon is the mekel. Here, yet Rashi shows how it works that way. So let's read inside the Rashi. You got to be a Rashi tip for this. Masnis and Rabbi Yehuda he damam lachshin zero lufa chayiv hilkoch chiyuv the choyvel b'tzarech lekalboi umaver b'tzarech leafroi mishkachas lom. Oh. In other words, according to Rabbi Yehuda, when you do a malacha that's not tzricha legufa, it's still called a malacha. If that's the case, my friends, if you are doing an act of Kabbalah, but you need the blood to feed it to your animal, according to Rabbi Yehuda, since malacha she'ein tzricha legufa is chayiv, Rabbi Yehuda will not call it mikalkel. He will not call it, it's not an act of kilkel. It's not an act of kilkel because it's constructive. It's not inherently constructive. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't need something to be inherently constructive. Even if it is she'ein tzricha legufa, it's considered the malacha. Right? The afal pidim calculates in malacha atzma, but misakin waits lachedim. Gevaldik. That means according to Rabbi Yehuda, when it's tzarech la'afra, you are not being mekalkel. When are you being mekalkel? When there is no even extraneous need. So that's our Mishnah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, every mekalkel is pater. When you're mekalkel v'tzarech la'afroi, when you make chayvel lekalboy, when you're maver tzarech laafrei, that's not called mekalkel according to Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda can make a straight statement, kol hamekalkel and peturin. Gavaldik. Because the moment there is some sort of outside soidech, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you cannot call it mekalkel. And taka, if there's an outside need, like if I need blood to feed, I need the blood to feed to my dog, and I'm wounding someone, it's not called mekalkel. However, weiter, Rabbi Yehuda ki agavna malachu mishum tikun acheren, ava mekalkel, which means there is no even extraneous benefit. Taka, you are always spotted. And Ashi himself points out the challenge on his shita, because according to this, the Mishnah's flow changes from one Tanach to the other. We just established that the beginning of the Mishnah, Hakereya b'chamasoi, Hakereya al meisoi, both Dafka follows Rab Shimon, and now the next line b'chala makalkul is Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah, that's Taka the Doichik, but that's what it means. Let's keep on going in Rashi. Now the Braisa of Rabbi Bo follows Rab Shimon. What does that mean? The Omar Malach Shen Tziruluva Prater. You have to appreciate this. But don't tell me that this Braisa, which is what Rabbi Yechanan told him, when you do an act of Chabala, but you need the blood for your dog, you're chayiv. No, you're not. Chabala is an inherent destructive act. Even when there is some sort of outside benefit, according to Rab Shimon, it makes no difference. And yes, we quoted the Mishnah, like we quoted the Nashi, that if you're chayvel b'Shabbos, you're chayiv. If you make a fire on Shabbos, midoiraisa, not like on Yom Tov midrabanan, on Shabbos, you burn, you're chayiv. So it must be, I call him a kalkal and peturin, it must be that according to Rab Shimon, there is a limud from the Torah. These are exceptions. And once you make an exception, you don't need to find it soirech lekalba, yotzarech laafrei. No, chayvel is always going to be chayiv.
That's Rabbi Yehuda?
According to Rab Shimon.
I thought according to Rabbi Shimon, you're saying that you dafka when you're using the blood for something else or the burning.
No. So that's we just no.
That's where you're chayiv from a kalko.
No. So that was what Rabbi Yechanan was telling him. It must be, the Gemara is saying over here, the way Rashi is learning Pshat, that if you're tzarech lekalboy and you're Rabbi Yehuda, it's not called mekalkel anymore. It's not called mekalkel because it is malach shen tzricha legufa. The ein tzricha legufa is machayev you, so the tzarech lekalboy takes it away from being a mekalkel. So again, so Rabbi Yehuda will be the one that can say mekalkel is takapater. The moment there's a tzarech, it's not called mekalkel. That's our Mishnah. Rab Shimon, even if it would be tzarech lekalboy, it wouldn't help, according to his rule, that malach hashen is pater. But we know that chayvel is chayiv. It must be that there's exeris hakosov kilo, that God is mechadish, that when it comes to Kabbalah and when it comes to making a fire, you're chayiv, even though it's an act of kilkel. Even though it's an act of kilkel. And you know when you're going to be chayiv? Always. Whenever you wound, you're chayiv. If Reuven wounded Shimon, even if he didn't need the blood, he's chayiv, according to Rab Shimon. Because again, we're going to learn psukim that show that Chabala is chayiv, that Mavet is chayiv. We're going to have a source for that. And how can you explain it? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't need to explain it. It's Malach Hashem. The Chasik is speaking about a case where it's a Malach Hashem and Tzricha Legufa. According to Rab Shimon, that will never help. So it must be that God is making an exception. If God makes an exception, it's always an exception. Let's read inside the Gemara. My time is Rab Shimon. In other words, what will be the source of Rab Shimon? Where do you find the source that chayvel is chayiv? He gives gavaldik. We'll learn this later in this Masechta. The Torah repeats Bayom Hashmini various times, and one of the Bayom Hashminis is to tell you that you do a bris milah even though it's being done on Shabbos. Why do you need to have an extra pasuk? Right? Because without the pasuk, you would think that a bris milah on Shabbos may not be done. Why not? What will be the problem? Because you're doing a wound. Now, if an act of a wound is going to be pater, then you don't need a limud to be marba chabala b'Shabbos. The fact that you need an extra pasuk is araya ha'chayvel ba'almas chayiv. Wow. Number one. Now, weiter. Me, the Asa Rachman, Havara, Gabi Baskoyin, so in Yovam is Davav. So a Baskoyin that commits adultery is burnt. And the way Bezin would burn whoever's Chayiv Sreifa is they would melt molten lead, right? They would melt lead and they would pour down that person's throat. That is what may not be done on Shabbos. Again, and that's what there's a limud that we have in Yavamas. Why not? Why can't you burn lead? Because you can't burn something on Shabbos. Shma mina, mavir ba'alma is chayiv. Now, 2 steps here. It gets even trickier according to Rashi. According to Rabbi Yehuda, I want to say 2 things. Rabbi Yehuda l'shitasoi malacha she'ein tzricha legufas chayiv will tell you on both of these cases. I know why you need a pasuk. A bris milah, my friend. Yes, the bris milah itself is an act of wounding, but there is a benefit. If the child is a kohen, for example, he can't eat truma until he has a bris milah. Ubechlal yid, you have to be a mohul. Now, the wound itself is not inherently beneficial, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't need that. So so if not for the Torah being marba by Yom HaShmini, you would think it's asur. You're wounding? No, this wound, there is a benefit that she'ein tzricha legufa. Same thing by the melting of the lead to execute someone who's chayiv misa. When Beis Din executes someone, we learned this in Sanhedrin, it brings about their kapara. So the act of burning has no inherent benefit, but it brings about a outside benefit. So again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's why you're chayiv. And now, so first of all, nothing is shver on Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda l'shitasoi doesn't have to say that chayv l'maver is an exception. Rab Shimon has to say that because according to Rab Shimon, the fact, even if there is some sort of exterior, extraneous benefit, who cares? It's malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. So it must be that these are 2 exceptions always. Whenever you're chayv, you're chayiv. Whenever you burn something, you're chayiv. But now the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda tells Rab Shimon, even though you hold malacha she'ein tzricha legufa spater, you know what? I'm going to argue not only that a bris milah has some sort of outside benefit. I'm going to argue that the act of a bris milah is inherently beneficial. That will be a kasha on Rab Shimon, because according to that, even Rab Shimon is ma'id malacha she'tzricha legufa is chayiv. How is the act of a bris milah inherently beneficial? So Rabbi Yehuda tells Rab Shimon, Hassan, by a bris, you are doing an act of tikkun, like Rav Ashi said. When you fix a keli, it's an act of tikkun. Even though when you fix a keli, you're manipulating, you're moving things around. Cutting off the arla is a inherently beneficial thing. And furthermore, when it comes to the act of the Torah, says you're not allowed to execute a baskoyen, and what's happening here is that you're melting the lead. Melting the lead itself, which is the act of burning, that is not some sort of kilkul. There's no kilkul inherently. Mali lavashel psilam, right? Whether you're cooking lead, you're boiling the lead, you're melting the lead. Mali lavashel samanim. When you're cooking samanim, it's a constructive act. You're seeping herbs. You're making a dye. You're making a medicine. When you're melting the lead becomes worsened because it's now in a liquid state. No, it does not. So Rabbi Yehuda challenges Rab Shimon l'shitas Rab Shimon. Okay, and Rab Shimon obviously disagrees with both of these points. Rab Shimon holds that if you look inherently at the act of a bris milah, it's not beneficial. You're wounding a child. When you are melting lead, he looks at that as not inherently beneficial. Yeah, there is a outside benefit, but let Rab Shimon, outside benefits means nothing. So each one l'shitasai will hold. Again, Rab Shimon will be the one that holds that kol hamakalkalim peturin chutz michayv l'maver. The challenges on Rashi are humongous, as all the Rishonim speak out, but we have to move on. Okay, says the Mishnah. We're moving now. I'm sorry, we are referring back to the end of the last Mishnah, that shiur hamalabein. So we learned it's a double sit. So we spoke this out in last year. Just to know, a sit is the space between when you open up your fingers and you're looking at your index and the middle finger. the space in between the tops of the fingers is called a sit. And that was for the weaving that we spoke out. But when it comes to working with the raw materials of fibers, how much of, let's say, disentangling them do you need to do for you to be chayiv if you disentangle enough to make a thread double the width of a sit? Now, what's double the width of a sit? So you would say, what do I mean? Double this, double the two fingers open. And indeed, Rabbi Yosef, when he taught the Mishnah, machvei kafel, whether it is that he opened up basically the right hand and the left hand, or whether he just showed everyone do this shiur twice. But Rav Chia Bar Ami had another way of getting to the double sit. Amazing. And what is that? Machvei pashut. He demonstrated by doing one measure. There is one measure that is exactly double the sit. And what is that one measure? If you open up your thumb and your index finger, you can try it. The space between the tip of your thumb and the tip of your index finger is exactly double the space in between your index finger and the middle finger. So if you want to know the shiur of double sit, either this twice, or here, Rabbi Chia Bar Ami said, no, this is the shiur. We have the same thing like a zeres. Remember that? That's in the Chumash. The shiur of a zeres is in between the tip of the pinky and the tip of the thumb. And a zeres is a double amo. If you have to have a double mamash, amo is from the top of your middle finger to the elbow. Zeres is exactly half. So if someone's a double zeres, don't double this, show your amo. Here also, anyways, a double sit is the thumb and the finger. Let's move on to the next Mishnah. Let's get moving. We're learning about trapping. Zajac the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Hatzat sipoir, if you trap a bird, do you know when the bird is trapped? Only if you chase the bird into a closet. Meaning, that's the whole DAF now, that if you chased a bird into a home, kal v'chomer into a large enclosure, even though the bird is stuck in there, it's such a large environment, the bird is not yet trapped. And as we'll see details in the Gemara, even though it's in there, just because you have a bird flying around in your house, if you need to get the bird, you got to schwitz. He's not caught yet. When is the bird trapped? When you bring him into a closet. And this has a double-sided result. Number one, if you chased the bird into a home on Shabbos, you're not chayiv. On the other hand, if you grabbed the bird from your home on Shabbos, you're chayiv for trapping because it was previously not trapped. If a bird was chased into the closet on Shabbos, you're chayiv. But the leniency will be is that once the bird already is in a closet and on Shabbos you caught the bird, you're not chayiv for trapping because the bird was already trapped. By the way, animals are muksa, so you can't grab a bird b'chlal because you're violating a rabbinic of muksa. We're speaking about a doirais. Now, a deer, that's the example here, you don't have to, it's not only when he's trapped in a closet. Even if he's labayis, you're going to be chayiv, even though the bayis is bigger. So holds the Rabbi Yehuda. However, that sipor, I agree with you, Rabbi Yehuda, that a bird is only considered trapped if you somehow you chased him into a closet, into a migdal. And if you chased him into something larger, he's not trapped yet. Turning finally to Daf Kuvav Amud Beis. However, Tzvi, I disagree with you, Rabbi Yehuda. You are saying that he's only trapped when he's in a house, which implies that if he's trapped in a larger enclosure, he's not trapped yet. I, the Chachamim, hold that even if you chase the deer into a gina, into a garden, or into a courtyard, or this is the word that we're going to learn about today, lebeivarin. Beivarin means a enclosure which is larger than a house. A lot more in the Gemara. How big? How little? What's the definition of an enclosure? Even though it's all of these are smaller than houses, the Chachamim hold that's already considered chayiv. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. You say the words beivar. They're not all equal. Zajac. If even though the animal is already in the beivar, but still mechusar tzedam, which means if you want to grab onto it, you will have a hard time getting it. So it's already in an enclosure, but if you go get it, if it's hard, we'll see in the Gemara more definitions. That means that right now it's not trapped yet. So if you chased it into that on Shabbos, you're not chayiv. But if it is in a enclosure, that once it's in there, it's ein mechusar tzedam, it doesn't you're not lacking further avoida to chop it. So then bringing it into that relatively smaller enclosure will be machayev you for the av of trapping. Now we learned a Mishnah in Shabbos. We're going to learn now a Mishnah in Beitza regarding Yom Tiv. We speak dafka about Yom Tiv because there you don't even have the muksa issue. On Yom Tiv, you are allowed to kill a fish on Shabbos to eat it. You are allowed to shecht an animal on Shabbos to eat it. We're going to speak about trapping in a moment. So it says in the Mishnah, says, you may not trap a fish from a fish pond on Yom Tiv. Why can you not trap a fish from a fish pond? This is very important because when the fish is already in the fish pond, it's not yet trapped. And you may not fish on Shabbos. Ooh, I oichel nefesh, guys, shitas Rashi. No, any malacha that you could have done before Yom Tov and the food would still be equally as fresh, you should have done it before Yom Tov. Now, I get it that if you take a fish out of the water out of Yom Tov versus taking a fish out of the water on Yom Tov, it's going to be fresh if you take it out on Yom Tov. True, but it doesn't mean you have to trap it on Yom Tov. You could have gone fishing out of Yom Tov. The fish should have already been trapped, halachically trapped. Leave it in the water. Leave it in the bucket, leave it in the water. And then on Yom Tov, just take it out. But the trapping was not needed. So here the question will be, if a fish is already in a fish pond, is it considered already trapped? That's the key. If it's already considered trapped, then you would be allowed to remove it. But this Mishnah says, because it's not trapped yet. Now, by the way, guys, this comes with a leniency. If a bevar is not trapped, conversely, it means that I am allowed to somehow manipulate a fish to go into the bevar on Yom Tov. I'm not trapping it. Next in, one more detail of this, being that even though the fish is in the bevar, it's not trapped, which means you cannot take it out on Yom Tov, which means now that this fish is muksa, there's a klal. I am not allowed to exert any effort on Yom Tiv or on Shabbos for muksa. So since I'm not allowed to trap it, it's muksa. Since it's muksa, you may not feed it. Ha. Weiter, Aval says the Mishnah, if there is an enclosure, we're not defining what that is, and in there you have already a chaya, in there you have a bird, so that is already considered trapped. Guys, that also means conversely that I am not allowed to manipulate a chaya or a knife into that enclosure on Yom Tiv because that's trapping it. But if it's already there, it's already trapped. If it's already trapped, then I can remove it to shechta to eat it. So it's not muksa. Since it's not muksa, the nice flame is nice, then you could feed it. Anything that's not muksa can be fed. That's the word. So, guys, this is the Mishnah. Atkan Gavaldik. Problem is Vidiminu. There's a stira that we have a Braisa. This is also about Yom Tiv. Guys, don't confuse the Mishnah and Beitza and the Braisa is about Yom Tiv. Our Mishnah is about Shabbos. We learned in a Braisa, all three together. Ein Shalom Hem Yom Tiv. In other words, animals in these enclosures are not yet trapped. Well, the good thing is you can put them in there on Yom Tiv because you're not trapping them, but they're not trapped yet. And therefore, you can't take them on Yom Tov. Therefore, they're muksa. And therefore, the ein noisen of emazoinus. So the kasha is both on chaya and on oifes. Say fish is aligned, but chaya and oifes is a stira. So the Gemara goes further. Bish loy mechaya chaya. I can tell you like kasha ha that the Rabbi Yehuda, the Brais is Rabbi Yehuda. What's Rabbi Yehuda, guys? From our Mishnah, I'll speak in a moment. Ha, the Mishnah in Beitza follows the Chachamim of our Mishnah. What do we learn in our Mishnah? The machlekes in our Mishnah is, right, whether the trapping of a deer is dafka in a house, or whether even if you put it in an enclosure, it's already considered trapped, which is the Rabbanan of our Mishnah, right? And that will be the Mishnah in Beitza. In other words, according to the Chachamim of our Mishnah, Tzadin chayiv oif an Yom Tiv, because it's already in an enclosure. It's already considered trapped. So that can work, very nice, but that's not good enough because oifes kashe, gewaldig. Maybe the Mishnah in Beitza is speaking about a roofed enclosure. A roofed enclosure, you understand, it's more trapped already. Since it's considered more trapped, then you can take it out of there on Yontif. It's already trapped. And maybe and the Braisa that says you may not take a bird out of this enclosure on Yontif is because the enclosure is not roofed. That can be. Why can't it be? Let's go back to our Mishnah. Because bias, the Mekayrahu, Ubein Rabbi Yehuda, Bein Rabbanan. When the Mishnah, our Mishnah spoke about a bird, no one even considers a house trapped. Dafka the Migdal, a bias loy. A bias loy, kal v'chomer, an enclosure. So answers the Gemara, Amar Rabba Barafuna, I'll tell you, it must be that our Mishnah, our Shabbos Mishnah, is speaking about a little bird, a kleiner bird. It's called a tzipor deroir. Tzipor deroir, the word deroir means it's a free bird. You know, the pet birds, even if you have a cage, if it goes out of the cage, you have to schwitz to get it. It's not makabel oil. It doesn't feel like it's trapped. And therefore, like we said, even though it's in your house, you still have to exert yourself to catch it. It lives with the same ruach in the house and in the field. Just like a bird in the field feels free, certain type of bird, even if it's in your house, it feels the same free. Okay, so now the Gemara says, now that you came to that, I don't have to make it machlokes tanoim. It depends what type of beaver it is. The Braisa. Right, the Braisa that says you may not take it out of the enclosure on Yontif. That's because it's in a large beaver. The Mishnah in Beitza is speaking about a beaver cotton. Now, hey chidame beaver gadol. Let's define that. Hey chidame beaver cotton. Amar Avashi kol heichel derod basrei umatale b'chat shichya. That's the word. If the animal is in a place, and for you to get it, you have to give one jump. Then it's already trapped. However, that's called a beaver cotton. But whenever it's in a place, but for you to get it from that place, you got to give at least 2 jumps. You have to make 2 efforts or more. Another inami, one complements the other. My friends, the walls, the height of the walls in the times of Chazal had a standard height. So if the walls are so close to each other, that during the morning and in the afternoon, the shade from the top of one wall touches the other wall. That means the walls are relatively near each other. That's called a beaver cotton. The idach is beaver gadol. And the inami, kolhecha, the leke, ukse, ukse. It's not about the size, it's about, are there many corners in this enclosure? A little nook, a little under, a little pasha corners, vinkalach. So if you don't have that, even if the room is larger, the animal has nowhere where to run. It's called cotton. And the idach is going to be beaver gadol. Guys, okay, we're still a little bit behind, but God willing, a lot more to be continued on trapping. Do you feel trapped? That's the word. And that's a lot. We're going to see tomorrow about the feel. Does the animal feel that they're trapped? You're only trapped if you feel like you're trapped. Even if you are in an enclosure and you got no place where to go, if you don't feel trapped, you're not trapped yet. That's gonna be the lesson over here.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shkoya, Rabbi.
The Chayvel U'Mavet, everyone got that? That's a hard Gemara. Hope so.
No.
No?
No.
It didn't happen. It means I didn't explain it good. That's not good.
No, I have to work it through again. It seems like that. According to Reb Shimon, it's usher on its own.
We'll try.
Inherently.
Has to be that way.
But with Reb Yehuda, it comes into a situation of whether it's a malacha she'en tzricha legufa or not.
Yeah, because well, there's many levels to that. Let's go. First of all, the fact is that Mila would have been usher on Shabbos. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, of course, first of all, it's a malacha she'en tzricha legufa. Really, it's a tikkun keli. Rabbi Shimon doesn't view it as a tikkun keli. He cannot use the malacha she'en tzricha legufa as a justification for you to be chayiv. So there's no other way than saying that it's an exception, even though it's an act of kilkul. But here you're chayiv for kilkul. He has no way to answer it other than saying the whole thing is an exception. Once it's an exception, it's always an exception.
Okay, and Rabbi Yehuda?
According to Rabbi Yehuda, 2 layers. First of all, even if he's going to agree with Rab Shimon that the act of cutting the arla in itself is a destructive act, so what? You know why you're chayiv? Because there's a side benefit. What's the side benefit? The kid can eat truma now. The kid has a Yiddish name. That alone justifies why you'll be chayiv, which is why you need to have it to say that you can.
Anytime you're burning something, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if there's no inherent benefit, you're not chayiv.
You're not chayiv only if at least it's a ein tzricha legufa. Like for example, he holds that being that someone getting killed in Beis Din brings them kapara, so there's a benefit for that. So since it's going to bring that person a kapara, so it's a malacha, and that's why you can't do it on Shabbos. Which he can explain all that. Why can't you do it? Because it's malacha she'en tzricha legufa. Rab Shimon doesn't have that way of explanation. Beautiful.
So where do you find an actual difference? Where you light a fire and you say Reb Shimon would hold your chayiv and Reb Yehuda would say your putter.
Unless it's at least a she'ein tzricha legufa. Exactly.
So I'm saying, what's an example of that? If I burn down my friend's house, that's what it's called?
Manish.
Why can't you say that? No, I hate this guy. I'm doing damage to him. I am accomplishing something. Why would you say there's really no some sort of benefit to a guy, according to Rabbi Yehuda?
Okay, you don't hate your neighbor. You don't hate your neighbor. You're not a destructive person. Understand a destructive person. Stama destruction, an act of destruction. A looter burns something down on Shabbos. Why? Because he's in a destructive mode. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he'll be pater. He'll be chayiv to pay for them. He'll be pater for chilul Shabbos. The act of kilkul. According to Rab Shimon, no, you're chayiv. It's exception. Good.
Therefore, in that case, Rabbi Yehuda would hold these chayiv for the damages.
Exactly. And Rab Shimon will hold these pater from the.
Says pater.
How ironic.
Right.
Maybe.